Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fly the Coop. We are so excited to invite Carmen Tong, not only a good friend, but a client of mine. Welcome, Carmen. I'm so glad to have you on the show today.
Hi, Carrie Ann. Hi, it's so nice to be here. It's just really great getting to know you, and thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast today.
Oh, it's
Super
an
excited.
honor. It's an honor. When we were having lunch together a couple weeks ago, it's been now, I said to Carmen, we were visiting and we work together, and you have three children, Carmen, three busy, busy children.
Yes, I do.
And you're married to a doctor. You guys met in college,
That's right.
and you have a busy, busy, demanding career.
Yeah, it's all of the above. Yeah, and I don't think I'm alone. I think a lot of people, especially women, these days wear many, many hats. I know you do, Carrie Ann, and you really give yourself and devote yourself to I feel like every aspect of your life, which is really a skill, I think. And it's not something that you're taught necessarily. It's something that you have to approach maybe with hesitation. But I think it's just, when you're there, you're present, and it's evident. And I think it's evident in everything you do and just how thoughtful you are and how you really consider things when you do them, which is really great. And just be
Oh,
more mindful. So I'm trying to practice that in my life as well.
well, that's such a compliment. Thank you so much. Well, I just thought you were so inspiring. And many of you, as I'm building a following, understand that Fly the Coop wasn't necessarily about real estate. It's about people's life stories and that nugget that can carry a message to somebody that will be inspiring. That's the point in visiting with you. You have such a fascinating story. You guys relocated here to the Twin Cities 7 years ago. You have a beautiful home. We've been in the, you've actually been in the throes of trying to figure this right sizing out with three growing children for a while now. It's been a couple of years. And I've met you. I met you actually a couple of years ago, and now we're really getting serious about this life transition, right? Fly the Coop is so many things. It's career, it's growing as a family, growing together as a couple. You guys met in college, and you have these two busy lives with these, very dynamic, busy kids that are very active. So let's start with moving to the Twin Cities and what it's like raising a young family,
Mhm.
and how have you balanced a busy doctor with a career that you want to keep and three kids? How do you make that happen? How do you do that?
Sure, that's a great
It's a big question.
Yeah, so we moved to Twin Cities because my husband grew up near Lake Harriet, which is one of the three beautiful city lakes in Minneapolis. And so I had met him in New York as an adult, like you said, back in our college years, New York City. So we met a long time ago. Um, but I had, visited Minneapolis back and forth. And actually, really funny story. I actually lived in the Twin Cities as a kid, so I knew what I was getting into him too with him. And maybe that's why I started talking to him uh, because of that, childhood, really great experience living here. But anyway, we moved up and down the East Coast, mostly for work, for training, that kind of thing. So we did have our first child, Oliver, in New York City. So he's a New York kid.
Wow.
And then we subsequently had Imogene, our middle, she's 7, and then Elliot, who's 5, and he was
Oh.
born here. So it all also, came full circle for me and
Mhm.
for I think. So anyway, we're settled here now, and we don't have any plans to go. We love it here. It's a really great place to raise a family. I
It
can't
really is.
hardly envision raising 3 kids, like young kids in some of these cities on the East Coast, just
I
with
know.
lots of living, with the density, and just kind of how hectic it is. It's really nice to be able to have more space out here. The schools are really great. I am driving a minivan, which is not something I ever thought I would do when I lived in Manhattan. I was really 100% career woman, career oriented kind of person, but I wouldn't trade it for a thing. And I'm really lucky now, like you mentioned, to do the parenting thing as well as supporting my husband in his busy career, and then also, being mom to my 3 wonderful kids. So it's a lot. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of anxiety and stress that comes with all of
Yeah.
that. Just, time management, balancing career and motherhood.
Mhm.
Like I said, like we were talking about having success in all aspects of your life. Obviously not every day can be like, oh my gosh, I was
Mm.
100% in, everything that I did. But I try to strive to at least be present in the moment that I'm in, and, do things with mindfulness and thoughtfulness, because I
Yeah,
think you have to kind of curate what you bring into your life when you're so busy.
I
So,
agree. It's so
yeah.
true. Those are great words. Those three, you really hit the three pillars in my mind. It's the
Uh-huh.
curating of the moments and how to buffer. Uh, I guess the infiltration of the glitter and the stuff going on in the world right now, especially because of social media,
Hmm.
managing time, being present. I think that's absolutely spot on. Being present in the moment with what's in front of you and giving yourself grace. Anybody should be in a position mentally to help lower the anxiety and the stress that comes with stirring so many pots, because it's impossible to live a life these days without stirring multiple pots, whatever that looks like, right? Um,
Yeah, you were
it really
saying,
is.
yeah, like the social media thing, it can be a distraction. It can also be helpful. And I
Yeah,
think it's important to look at it both ways. I think you've really got a good pulse on that. With social media, you can use it to benefit your life as well. You can use it to streamline things. You can use it
absolutely.
when you're running to and fro to really, listen to your favorite podcast, like
Yeah.
your podcast,
Oh,
or, just things like that. So it can be helpful too. And I think I'm a pretty positive person, so I like to see the bright side of things. So, yes, there are a lot of negative things. I think you can definitely spend too much time, staring at a screen. And that can never replace, going for a hike or going for a swim or a walk. But there are times that it can be really helpful as well.
that's why we got to get you moving on to the lake.
That's right.
We won't go
So,
deep diving
it's
into
in
that
front of my
subject.
computer. I can sit on my computer, but have the view.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So, what I thought most fascinating about you, because how I started this, everyone, is with every relationship. Like Carmen and I have been very work focused in the daily life and finding this home. And we get these tiny little moments of personal conversation, but not
That's
enough. So, we had an hour to have lunch together. And Carmen, you have a fascinating job. It's a fascinating job, and it really is something that, in my mind, was quite inspiring. So many companies post COVID, through COVID and post, have really redesigned how they operate. And I think your company is a perfect example of that. So share with everybody what you do and how you're working, because you're pretty much working from home other than an occasional gathering somewhere in the country. I think it's cool.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm lucky enough to be able to work, as Carrie Ann said, remotely, which is nice because it gives me the flexibility to build my own time, hours and things like that, and still be able to kind of pick up the kids and drop off and things like that. But I work for a company called Lose It. It's a tech company and based in Boston, Massachusetts.
Mhm.
We were recently bought out, actually, not recently, so it was more like a year ago,
Okay.
by a larger company called Ziff Davis, which is
Mhm.
a big media company based in New York. And we are actually under the Everyday Health groups. So it's all about health and wellness. And my company focuses specifically on the weight loss aspects. So Lose It is all about maintaining a healthy weight, and having this app. Like I said, it's actually the kind of app where we don't want you to spend so much time on it. So it's an app, definitely, as I was saying, technology that is designed to help you in your
Okay.
life. And you can spend as much time or as little time as you want. Um, but it's really, has a calorie counting feature, it has a food library, food scanner. And now we're kind of, in what my job mostly is sort of thinking about content and what kind of content and education can we give people to enhance their health and wellness journeys.
Okay. Very, very amazing. So, when we were going into the infrastructure of it, that seems high level, quite simple, right? But the operations and management of it are quite complex. So you
Mhm.
work on a team of about, was it 50? Is that right?
Yeah, so the entire company is actually just under 50
Okay,
employees
that's amazing.
at Lose It. Yeah, obviously the parent companies are a lot larger, but yeah, Lose It has really managed to stay lean. And so people, like I said, like I do in my life and you do in your life, even the people at the company wear a lot of hats. So it's
Mhm.
been really fun to learn, just that you're not siloed and put into a box. You can, if you're interested in writing, which I love to write, I've done a lot of writing for the company. And I like to tell stories, so in different ways, different mediums. So you can do that. It's really great. So your job is not just what the job description is. And so if you have an interest or a passion, you can really bring that into your work as well. So that's really nice because sometimes at really large companies, you may not have that opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what exactly is your role? Because it was really interesting listening to what you do. It was fascinating.
Sure. Yeah. So I started out doing industry marketing for Lose It. So working with the VPs and the CEO to build out their reputation, build out the company's reputation, and really just tell the narrative of the company, what Lose It is all about, and putting Lose It on the map essentially. So that was kind of the first, what I did at first. And then, of course, we were acquired. So that was, something that obviously resonated with people. They saw, okay, there's a good leadership team here.
Mhm.
This company is worth it. And that was kind of my job initially, was to make people know that, we are a small team, lean, but super hardworking, super smart people. And look, we help over 50 million people around the world lose, millions and millions of pounds every day.
Wow.
So,
That's just amazing. So if
yeah,
somebody wanted to learn more about this company and about what it can do for them, how would they research it? What do they just Google lose it?
yes, you can go to the App Store on your phone. You can just type in "lose it," and you'll see the calorie counting. You can also look under calorie counting apps. But if you just go to the App Store, type in "lose it," that's the easiest way to find "lose it."
Interesting.
And we
That's
also have
interesting.
presence on the web as well. So you could do, www.loseit.com. And I do a lot of writing for the blog, actually, called The Secret Ingredient. So, that's where it's like a go-to for health and wellness content. If you want to start a weight loss journey, if you just want tips on how to, navigate Lose It and how to start, that's another way to do it. And it's a free product. That's the other thing. It
Wow.
starts, you can download it for free and, successfully start your health and wellness journey.
It's amazing. So the behind the scenes on that, I'm assuming then the affiliates, there's advertising and as an operating company, what's their revenue stream? How does that work? Is it through advertising?
Yeah, so that's something new that we're trying out, a little bit of advertising within the app, but it's, a lot of it initially was just putting the time and money and resources into research and making the product really great. So
Wow.
the product is, I have to say, really amazing. There are competitors out there who do similar things, but the barcode scanner, the library, and just the ease of use is sort of
Yeah.
unparalleled with this
Wow.
product.
Yeah, it's the complexity when we were having lunch together of what's going on behind the scenes to make the services available and operate well. It's just quite complex now because of technology, right? The technology is mind blowing. And there needs to be operators behind that and designers behind that. So, what was your degree in college? What did you graduate with? Just curious.
Communications and focusing on marketing.
Okay,
So
cool.
that's essentially what I've done my whole career. I've done, around the gamut from working with luxury brands to, promoting Chinatown, New York City after 9/11,
Wow.
to working in higher education, working at a hospital. I've done kind of all of the above. So at the end of the day, I really see myself as now, kind of the, generalist, all types of marketing. I've done, I started out my career actually focusing on public affairs, public relations. So talking to the
Interesting.
media, running press conferences, things like that.
Wow, that's
Done external
impressive.
communications for a hospital, which is very different. So
Yeah, for sure. So
yeah,
if you were to gravitate to one thing you're really passionate about, it seems like you like writing quite a lot.
I do love writing. And I think, yeah, writing is just something that I guess is my one of my favorite ways to tell a story. But at the end of the day, I see my job as storyteller.
Mhm.
And whether that be on a tweet or a press release, or you're writing up a success story, someone who's lost over 100 pounds and has successfully maintained their weight. It's telling the story for the correct audience in a variety of different mediums. So that's kind of, what I love to do.
Yeah.
And you can
You
learn
could
so
almost,
much.
you could almost be a subcontractor. Like you could be with the work experience and the variety, you could be consulting with a variety of different companies. That's
Yeah.
quite a skill set.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am a marketing consultant with Lose It. So it is great. Like I do, potentially, if I have more time, I could, actually do that for other companies as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Time, right? That's the
right
problem.
now with Lose It. Yeah. But
Yeah.
my youngest is going to be starting kindergarten in the fall. So I thought about it. My mom and my sister-in-law, my brother's new wife, they're actually thinking about launching their own businesses. And they're, what they want to do. So I kind of, on an unofficial basis, helping them, think about their business plans, their marketing plans, and things like that. So
How fun. You gotta come up with a plan so you can start charging for your services.
that's right. I know. With family, it's like, okay, it's free. I don't
My
think
gosh. So that is a rabbit hole, right? Because like many opportunities in careers, there are so many places to use energy and time. So kind of building a box around, you know, identifying the top priorities each day and each week. So you have the work life balance. How do you do that for the men and women out there that are listening? How do you find when you have such a broad responsibility in a
Mhm.
career like this, and there is some travel involved, and you're trying to take care of a home and raise children and have a relationship with your husband or wife, all those things. How do you do that? How do you prioritize your week?
Yeah, I think it's a juggle. And I think I'm definitely guilty of, one of the being one of those people that makes lists in their heads at night in bed and just staying up for an hour. And sometimes those lists in my head translate to lists in my notes feature in my phone.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'm a very visual person. So for me, I've always been a better, I remember things better when I write them down.
Me
So whether
too.
it's typing something in a phone or writing in my notebook, that's just kind of how I sort things out in my head. There you go. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with analog.
Yeah, there isn't. That's funny you use that word because I just interviewed, we just dropped, I sent it to you, Joan Serrano, who's an architect here in the Twin
Uh-huh.
Cities. And she
Yeah,
used that word analog, and I haven't heard it for so long. And we just are using it again. But there is something to be said for old school, old fashioned writing. I think it helps slow the process and slow the mind a little bit and helps purge
absolutely.
it. I think people are so prone because it's promoted, right, to be digital and keep things on here, and utilize this solely. I do think that can create more. Oopsie. Speaking of which, somebody's talking here. It was Joan. Um, that's okay. I feel like the process of getting away from the screen and from the phone and from all of the interrupt that comes from that, because there's so much, and just
Mhm.
purging. I say to the team, purge the brain at night.
Yeah, I
Whatever's
love
in
that.
there, dump it on a piece of paper so it's out of your mind and you can sleep. And
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it for sure, Carmen. Like I won't do that. And then I'm up at 1 in the morning, which I have to say that was last night. And
I
I'm purging the head because it's just full and it's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna go to sleep. I just have to go down and write." And then once it's cleared out, you can sleep. I think the
yeah, I
dog
think
is
that
right. That's a great word.
yeah, even if there are things that that you have to do. So there's always, the list, you can prioritize it. So there's obviously the urgent things that you just must do. Like you must take the kids to their soccer game, you must attend this meeting for work, you must get the groceries for dinner. Those are the musts. And then there's the would like to, I would like to get to this and these five things tomorrow. And then obviously they're the ones that are more sort of, okay, if I get to this, that's great. If I don't, it can go to next week. So I think it's like constantly like reshuffling, thinking about priorities. And sometimes things fall through the cracks. That is totally normal. Nobody, we could all use a 4-day weekend, right? We
Oh
could
my
all use,
gosh.
you
All
know,
of us could. What I love
yeah.
about Carmen and Corey, her husband, you two tag team beautifully. I get to spend and visit with these two quite a lot because we're in the middle of their search right now. And Corey will call me after he's finished procedures for the day, and he'll be in the grocery store picking up groceries at 6:37 at night. And Carmen's at the violin lesson and tag teaming the three kids. You guys do a beautiful job of tag teaming as two career parents. For those that are young, um, young married couples starting their family, what would be the three pieces of advice that you'd give anybody who is building a family together and are keeping careers, both of them? What would you say to them?
Sure. I would say, one thing is recruit the right team around you.
Mhm.
Whether it's asking for parental help, if you can afford it and have the time, if you can afford it, try to get a caregiver occasionally, maybe occasional babysitter. When I lived in Boston, we weren't able to do that. And it was tough because it was all me.
Yeah.
So, um, but my relief would come through in the form of, hanging out with friends. So we would all be in it together. All of us would be at the park. It'd be like sweating and running to and from. Oh my gosh, I have so much to do, but let's just like talk about it together because we're all in it together. So that's another thing. Like if you can't outsource the help, find other people that are in the same position as you and they can relate and you can help each other out potentially. So that's another way to do it.
Mhm.
Um,
It's true.
I think also, do the things you like and try to delegate the rest.
Mhm. It's
When it
really
comes to
true.
household chores, taking care of the kids, maybe one parent likes to do um, the bedtime stories. Maybe the other parent likes to do the sports games with the kids or the diaper change, depending on what stage you're in.
Right.
Um, so I think, figure out what the things are that you enjoy doing when it comes to those kinds of chores and then delegate the rest if you can.
That's a great piece of
Um,
advice. It really is.
and I guess like just find the humor too, would be my third piece of advice. Find the humor in everything you do. Don't get too serious. Don't be too hard on yourself and don't take life too seriously, I think.
Mhm.
If there's a pile of laundry, there's a pile of laundry. It's not going to hurt you.
Mhm.
And if you'd rather be in the playground outside with your kids, do that too. So I think
That's
it's,
great advice. Because we can get in the weeds, right? I always say this to people, to the team, to clients. Don't deep dive to a place where you get stuck there. I know I'm guilty of it. I have to pull myself out of those places sometimes where you get
yeah,
fixated on this thing and you just have to do it and you have to step back and say, okay, what's really a priority right now? Like what is really important that I'd rather do if I had the choice? Because there's
yeah.
always
And
a way
I'm
to change it.
constantly,
It's
yeah,
constant.
like I said, I'm constantly reshuffling those priorities too. So I think it's, they're not they're fluid, right? Like it's kind of like um, those magnetic words that you can put on your fridge. You can put them in different places, so there's different ways to make it work. Um, but
So
everyone, there's no one pathway
I
at
have
the end of it.
another question for you because you are, your parents are, I believe they're international. They're elsewhere, right? Which
We're in
country are
Hong
they?
Kong.
They're in Hong
They're
Kong.
in Hong Kong. Yeah.
So, what was the decision? Because I meet clients and I have friends like you that their parents are international. They're not in the States.
Mhm.
How did you make that decision when, those family components are so strongly rooted? I know you have the opportunity to be over there at least once a year, I believe, if not twice. We'll talk about that. But
Mhm.
then how do you implement a plan so you're able to have the quality time you want? How do you do that? And how did you make the decision to separate the ties and come to the States? Some people are leaving and going elsewhere, the family piece of it, but there's definitely a lot more divide than there used to be in terms of where parents are and
Mhm.
where the kids end up going just because of the world, what's going on right now. There's that ability. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. So my parents met in Chicago, actually. I was born in Chicago. So I am like, I guess a Midwestern girl, although I consider myself really like I've moved around a lot, quite a bit in my life, even as a child. And like you said, my parents are in Hong Kong. I lived in Hong Kong for 6 years. So a lot of my best friends are from Hong Kong. So I also see Hong Kong as home.
Oh,
Um, but technology is one thing, staying in touch through Zoom. I had attended American schools and international schools in Hong Kong, so I always knew that I was going to come to the States for college. Landed in New York right after college. That's when I met Corey. um, but and my brother as well. So the two of us, we're both in the States. My parents, they have relatives and their moms to take care of in Hong Kong, so their
yeah.
home is really there. Their careers were there. Um, and obviously, when growing up as a family, when I was 10, we moved to China. So I lived in
Okay.
China for a year and then Hong Kong for 6 years. So I was kind of like your American girl, and then we moved. So my parents are also dual citizens, like I am. They're American passport and Hong Kong passports as well. So we're as a family used to like traveling to see each other. In college, I would go back, like you said, once or twice a year. And um, aside from the pandemic, I did try to go with my family and the kids once a year to Hong Kong to see them.
Oh, nice.
So
What a
yeah,
treat for them too. What an experience, right? That's amazing for them.
yeah, and Carrie Ann knows. I mean, one of the criteria for the new house is to have enough space for my parents to stay for a prolonged time. Because the next time they come to the States, I do want them to stay for longer if possible, and have them, space that they are not able to have in Hong Kong because everyone lives in a shoebox in Hong Kong. So I
Yeah.
think if here, to just be able to spread out and have space would be really nice.
It is fascinating. Well, that's another fly the coop conversation. Housing and how we perceive it, what our expectations are, and how different they are in other parts of the world, right? So,
Oh
give
yeah.
people an example of what life looks like for your normal pedestrian in Hong Kong. Like,
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like New
say,
York times 10.
oh
It's like
my
New York
gosh.
City times 10 because I lived in New York as well. It's not as bad as like say Tokyo, that there are people pushers that push you into the subway, but it can get really busy. So you're just always like
Wow.
around people, which is really great because you get their energy. You actually become a very efficient person. And in fact, I had colleagues in New York City who were like, I have never seen someone who walks as fast as you do. And I used to do a lot of walking for work, just doing like giving press tour, taking people to, around Chinatown to meet all the different businesses and eat at restaurants. It was a really fun job, by the
Yeah,
way.
for sure. Wow.
So
Wow.
my colleagues were like, "Oh my God, you walk faster than like a New Yorker does." And I'm like, "Well, have you been to Hong Kong? Everyone's like this. If you're not like this, you can't do anything. You can't get anything done. You can't find a table at a restaurant. You can't, check out. In fact, one of the funniest examples of, just how people are so highly efficient in Hong Kong is when you go to the grocery store and if you pay in cash, they already have the change for you, the exact change waiting for you. And while you're still like fumbling with your wallet, like they're just so fast.
Oh my
And I'll
God.
give you an example. I opened a checking account for the first time. I went to school in North Carolina, and it took 2.5 hours, I think, to
Oh my
open a
God.
basic college checking account. And I remember calling my mom, who was in Hong Kong. I said, this is really different from life in Hong Kong. Like it was like culture shock for me. Like I just couldn't believe that something so simple could take like
Um,
so long.
so the efficiencies of it are really, really
See, and
elevated.
also just the density. I mean, Hong Kong's really dense. So, people are used to living in really tight spaces, with maybe multi generations as well. And most people live in apartments and really tiny, tiny apartments as
So
well.
what's your square footage, like the average family, to give people
Um,
perspective?
I am no expert, so I really can't say, but I can tell you that I think it is the most expensive place to live in the world. Correct me
Mhm.
if I'm wrong, Carrie Ann.
Yeah, I
But
think so.
Hong Kong is generally number one. It's been number one probably for, a long time. Um, so, every square foot is just precious. You you're lucky if you have two bathrooms, to be honest. You're really lucky. And
It's
you're lucky if you don't have to share a room with a sibling.
when your parents come to the States and they have over their lifetime, what's their take on housing here versus housing in Hong Kong? What's their personal opinion on that?
Oh, they're always saying things like, "Oh my gosh, for the amount of money that we spend on our apartment, we could live in a mansion." On the lake. That's essentially what it is. It's just what you get in those different countries is so
Yeah.
different.
It's so different. I don't think people, because Minnesota in the Midwest, people pretty much stay grounded when they're from this part of the world. They don't do a lot of traveling, a lot of them, not everybody, but this is always fascinating, I think, because people do get very, focused in their own experience and forget how different it is in other parts of the world and how lucky we really are. Where in fact, our housing is really affordable here in the grand scope, of looking at other parts of the country and the world, for sure.
Yeah, look, it surprised me too. I mean, I think, like living in expensive cities like Boston and New York, and then coming here and you're looking at the prices and, what you can get. And it is astounding, how different those cities are.
It really
Um,
is.
yeah. So it's all
Next,
relative, right? Like
yeah.
we're looking for a bigger house. Of course, we could stay in our current house. But I think, given the fact that we know we're going to be here for the long term, my husband's desire is to really find something closer to a body of water, which I cannot complain. Hong Kong is an island country. New York was always, I was always looking at water or, walking near the water. So I think water is a big deal for me. I also think it's, really nice to be close to a body of water to be able to have that sort of lifestyle and,
Well, and we have so much of it here. We really do. People forget, like the state and the city, it's 60% water. It's a
yeah,
lot.
is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
marshland and lakes. There's a lot. They say the land of 10,000 lakes, Carmen, it's like exceeds 11,000. I remember what the number is, Carter. We'd have to Google it. It's like 11,500 or something like that. It's well over
Oh,
10.
yeah,
A
that could
lot.
be a
It's a
very
lot.
great marketing campaign. I was just thinking, I used to do some, tourism destination marketing, and man, that would be a great campaign because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Everyone's 10,000, but if it's more like 11,500.
Yeah, we could do a whole piece on that. We could do a whole
That's
piece on that.
right.
So I could talk to you for hours. You're so fun. We've already just been chatting away. If you were to speaking to the women out there, if you were to give them one sound piece of advice based on
Mhm.
where you're at in your life now and this next adventure, this next home, which is going to be a long game. Like what we're looking at, the reason we're taking the time we're taking is this is a long game. This will be an expensive home and you're going to be in it for a long time.
Mhm.
So, navigating lifestyle change and as it relates, because that's what I do, right? I help people with lifestyle change
Mhm.
as it relates to the balance of that and figuring out how to make a decision with a partner, what would be the piece of advice? Because that can be a big struggle, right? there's always differences in what the two partners want.
That's right.
And how do you come together for the sake of fulfilling each individual want and the family growth, knowing you're going to be in this space for probably 15, 20 or more years? What would be
Mhm.
a piece of advice to people in that place right now in their life?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's so daunting, right? Like you could be, get along in every way, be so compatible with your partner, but everyone is different, which is what makes life beautiful. I think for me at least, staying curious, learning about things, listening to others, and just being open-minded. I've, I've told you, I've moved around a lot as a child, as an adult. I think it's really good to have that flexibility and be open-minded to everything, because you never know. You never know what you're going to love. You never know what you're going to fall in love with when it comes to real estate.
Yeah.
And I think, if you can convince your partner to do the same, that's great. If they're more stubborn, then you may have to work, around some of the things that they cannot reconcile with, I guess. So, and I guess also for yourself, think about what are the things that you really want. Like for me, one thing is just to have a lot of light in the home. That's something that's really important to me. And my partner luckily agrees with that as well.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of a deal breaker. So if the house is really dark, I don't think I'm going to envision myself spending,
Mm.
however many years there, and
Yeah.
being.
So being really clear about what you want.
I think being clear about what you want and maybe even just writing out a list. Like I said, we were talking about pen and paper or, on your iPad. Um, each person write a list and just see, where the differences, where are the commonalities, and looking at it that way. Like I said, I'm very visual. So if you can see like, okay, there are like 15 commonalities, like let's focus on those and find a home that fits that criteria.
Great
Um,
advice.
one
Really.
way.
That's really great advice. We're going to add that. That's brilliant, honey. Well, you and I are definitely going to visit again, maybe by the end of the year once you've found your home, which I know you
Oh,
will this
thank
year.
you.
I know you guys are going to find your home. So everybody look up Carmen Tong. She works for Lose It. We're going to add it. She's a mother. She's a career person. She is a beautiful wife and has a wonderful husband. She lives in the Twin Cities and she's got a lot of insight on all things life. So it has been an honor, Carmen. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. You're lovely. Thank you.
Oh, you are too. Thank you, Carrie. And it's been a really wonderful journey to getting to know you and
Mm,
coming
thank
onto your
you.
podcast.
Yeah, super fun. We'll be doing lots of work together. I know it. You're quite the talent, young lady. So
Oh,
thank you again, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Fly the Coop, and we will see you next time.